Hello, thank you so much, and welcome to lecture number 3 based on lecture plan document. Today, we are going to talk about the brain and language. We are going to talk about brain damage and how it can disrupt language. Primarily, we refer to language as one of the left hemisphere text. Okay, for introduction, we are going to talk primarily about different types of language disorders, particularly aphasia. So aphasia is the disruption of language by some brain-related disorder. Primarily, we are talking about hemorrhagic stroke. Number of arteries in the left hemisphere have the potential to be disrupted by stroke or other cerebrovascular incident, and this tend to be how a language get disrupted. I can be very specific about different language system. So, so that can often tell us a lot about different parts of the brain and how they are responsible for language. Okay, so when we talk about this, we often talk about, of course, Broca's area and Wernicke area. The auditory cortex is an important part of this. The motor part of the brain are important part of this as well. So Wernicke areas are primarily involved in language comprehension, coming here from auditory cortex and even often from the visual cortex. That information can combine. So what we see here can also be related to what we see. But then the information gets communicated potentially to broadcast area if we are trying to respond or repeat what somebody said, which is how we create spoken language, which is tied directly with the brain motor cortex area. Okay, so we are going to talk primarily about this sort of top part of this box. Yeah. Now we are going to talk about types of aphasia, especially brain-related disruptions of language and cognition. So the first of all, broadcast aphasia. Broadcast aphasia related with disruption of speech production or syntactic features. And next, Wernicke aphasia. This is the disruption of comprehension or semantic features. And then conduction aphasia. This is the disruption of repetition of words and sentences. And so next, the anomia or anomic aphasia. This is the disruptions of word finding or either lexical or semantics. Next, pure word deafness is a disruption of perceptual or semantic processing of auditory word comprehension. And alexia, this is related with reading cognition of print letter or words. And agravia, this is related with writing. And other symbolic related, this is there are acalcula. Acalcula is related with mathematical abilities, retrieval or rule-based procedures. And then perception and movement related. There are agnosia. Agnosia is disruptions of visual object recognition. Prosopagnosia, this is the disruption of visual face recognition, and the last is apraxia. Apraxia is disruptions of voluntary action or skill, motor movement. Okay, so let's get started with Broca's aphasia. Individuals with Broca's aphasia have trouble speaking fluently, but their comprehension can be relatively preserved. They have difficulty in language production, so this is usually called non-fluent or expressive aphasia because they cannot fluently express themselves. So this is an inability to speak what you are trying to convey the message, tend to be in the left inferior prefrontal area. This is often called Broca's area, not a precise area in every brain, but in that left inferior prefrontal area. Generally, as you can see here, a pretty large area that can contain Broca's area. Now we are going to look at it as quite a bit the large area that contains what we might call Wernicke's area and the way that they are connected because disruption in of these areas can result in different types of aphasia. I also noticed that Wernicke's area has input from the auditory and visual cortex that are conveyed to Broca's area, which then goes on to the motor cortex. So the image to the left inferior prefrontal area tend to be called Broca's area, which again results in Broca's aphasia or expressive aphasia. Okay, next, Wernicke's aphasia. In this form of aphasia, the ability to grasp the meaning of spoken words and sentences is impaired. Wernicke aphasia is also referred to as receptive aphasia and can also cause disruption of reading and visual comprehension. So damage is generally in the superior temporal lobe at the tempoparietal junction. So if we look here, we can see Wernicke area is in the anterior superior temporal lobe, right in conjunction with the parietal lobe. Sometimes even can be visible to contain parts of the parietal lobe. So this is an inability to understand spoken language, and again, often some inability to understand written language, which we refer to as alexia. This is Wernicke's aphasia. So next, conduction aphasia. Conduction aphasia is an acquired language disorder characterized by an intact fluency of auditory comprehension, yet paraphrasing expects to the production of poor speech repetition. So essentially, we have a disconnection between Wernicke's and Broca's area. That's why it's called conduction aphasia, because information cannot be conducted from Wernicke's area to Broca's area. So that speech comprehension is intact, understand the speech, we can create our speech, but we cannot repeat what somebody says back to us. So that's this connection between the two. What does tell us about speech language is that there's an area for comprehension and production and connection between the two that can cause different types of disruption. Okay, next. So those are the general spoken language types of aphasia. There's also called pure word deafness, which is the selective inability to comprehend the spoken word in the absence of aphasia or with defective hearing, and is divided as a pure word deafness or auditory verbal agnosia. So essentially, remember an agnosia with an inability to recognize object and pure word deafness. It is an inability to recognize words as words. So this is an inability to comprehend language generally, but an inability to process individual words. So it's a complete inability to comprehend language. Annulment is a condition characterized by difficulties relative words. Okay, and then this is anomia. So individual with anomia often use circumlocution. circumlocution is word and indirect language expressing an idea when they cannot retrieve the desired words. This is a lexical access problem. We talk about this with agnosia because this demonstrates a connection between the recognition part of the brain and the connecting it with language part of the brain. So people with anomia cannot connect an idea, either an internally generated one or an external stimulus with its name or word. So literally, anomia is translated from Latin as without names. So it is an inability to name things. So to come up with the word you are thinking of. Now, some of us have a little of this, and then we have just difficulty finding the right word for something. And you see some of this as we got older, but this is a complete loss of the ability. So you can see the lecture on agnosia, see how this ties in with things like pattern recognition. Okay, next, alexia and agravia. Finally, we get to alexia and agravia. Alexia is the loss of the ability to read and is often referred to as pure word blindness. So these people can read and lose that ability and are generally thought of as having a visual recognition disorders. Next, agravia is the loss of the ability to write. What's surprising is you can be alexic but not agraphic. You can write but cannot read what you have just written. And so these are distinct neural pathway involved in reading and writing. And we sort of often treat them as two sides of the same coin, but they are entirely different neural systems. Okay, so that's a quick introduction to different types of aphasia. Next, I want to flip the bit a little bit here and talk about bilingualism and brain development, and talk a little bit about its importance. The first of all, bilingual adults recover more easily from strokes, and I'm so there is a great deal of data on how being bilingual benefits our host and recognitive ability. So I just want to give you a list of some information bilingual adults show increased gray matter. They show reduced rate of dementia in the later onset of symptoms for those who do develop dementia. Bilingual children show greater cognitive flexibility. The benefit of being bilingual can be seen as early as 18 months. So being raised in a bilingual household is a net advantage. So we have a lot of discussions about language development and developing programs to increase bilingualism. So I think they are important because they do provide a lot of benefits. So just a summary of the types of tasks that have been shown to benefit from being bilingual. So learning a second language has several benefits, and I think it's something to consider. Get us to the end of the brain and language. The next lecture will be on drugs and cognition, which will learn all these modules. Thank you very much.